Ever seen a hook pull, like a Native American, like Sundance style stuff, like a hook pull?
Yeah, it's time to go on a vision quest.
Yeah. You did that?
Yeah.
On purpose?
They hooked through your flesh.
On purpose.
And we're live.
Oh, no, not the fear response. Like don't get me wrong, I get fear responses with climbing. Like I get the identical fear response with leading when I'm above my rope as I do. I got pierced one time, like two hook pull style piercing, like big fucking.
Oh, we're talking decorative skin piercing.
No, I'm talking. You put weight on it, you hang off them. So I got pierced for those, and the fear of getting pierced like that was the same fear for me. I get the same fear sweat of that when I lead climb. But no, I'm not talking a fear response with the feet tingling. That's just like a pure body, like physical response of when I'm climbing, my feet would be doing XYZ style kind of.
I can't be the only one that doesn't understand this piercing thing.
I think I know what he's saying. It like those videos on YouTube, or they used to have it on like fucking Discovery Channel or whatever the hell. Is it one of those things where like they hook you through your flesh and they suspend you?
Ever seen a hook pull, like a Native American, like Sundance style stuff, like a hook pull?
Yeah, it's time to go on a vision quest.
Yeah.
You did that?
Yeah.
On purpose?
They hooked through your flesh.
On purpose. No, I fell.
I did that accidentally.
I wasn't sure, like, because it's in the context.
I woke up and someone was like,
it's in the context of a climbing accident. He's like, I got pierced one time, and I'm afraid that'll happen. And I'm like, the fuck, like,
no, Phil's waking up in Jigsaw's compound. No. So what was that like? Were you just hooked twice through the chest? Where were all the hooks, and what was the suspension like?
I didn't do a suspension, so I put weight on it and pulled on them and pulled against other people and pulled against inanimate objects, and I've done that a couple times.
Some cans
Never done
of paint.
A suspension. Say what?
Hang a can of paint, maybe.
No, I don't tend to. There's lots of people who do that. I know what you're talking about. They put like fruits through it or hang stuff off of it, but no, I haven't done that in of itself. But no, tried that. I found it to be. I don't want to sell it short for people who enjoy that. A lot of people around me found that very relaxing and very like therapeutic. But for me, I found it a very hard way to get the same buzz I'd get off of half a six pack. So I found that to be. I have a very hard time.
Right, you gotta be hanging from a mesquite tree for a day
No,
it
took fucking forever to get there. Like you pull it, like, you're like, this fucking hurts. This fucking hurts, and you do that like until like it still fucking hurts, but you're also kind of riding that endorphin, so it's a different style shit. And it takes me a long ass time to get that way. So
is there any fear doing it? Because when I watch those videos, I haven't seen the kinds you're talking about, like the leaning and like tug of war, which is what it sounds like. But I've watched the ones where it's like the guy like laying back and he's just got hooks all through him and he's hanging there. Yeah. What is there no fear of like your skin just tearing through, or like? So
they do
I never understood the appeal.
Yeah, they do occasionally tear through. Generally not if they're pierced well. Generally the depth and the skill of the piercer will make that less of a thing. But sometimes, depends on how you do it. If you do it with supervision, people are going to be like, okay, you need to stop because you're going to tear that if you do it.
You don't want to get pierced by a carny or something. Like, all right, keep your feet inside. Hey, come here, let me hook you. Where are you going?
I just feel like the guide, quote unquote, for this kind of event would be the kind of dude who has like 2 ball bearings implanted on his temples, or like on the top of his head or something, and he's got like his tongue is bifurcated, and it's like, I don't trust you to do anything. Look what you've done with your life, sir.
Yeah, so
chest full of scars. Yeah.
Yes, disdain.
So yes, actually, there tends to be a lot of overlap with the body mod community for sure. And I've seen suspensions of like tattoo parlors style stuff, and I've also seen them for like more of the ritualist stuff. I've seen it with like the more spiritual stuff. I've seen it a couple different ways for that. But yeah, a lot of times the guy who's doing the piercing is. I actually think that would be, for me, that's comforting. The guy, he's done a lot of piercing. Yeah, like, that's a good thing.
You want the guy who's familiar with it. You don't want some squeamish guy like, all right.
Yeah. Because for a lot of that reason, I don't want to rip chunks out of my chest, particularly. Like I prefer to that be, and yes, it is for me. That's the scary part, is getting the piercing. Getting the piercing is the scariest part of that, because for me it's the most pain.
Did it leave a scar?
Yeah, little. It's like 2 white dots, and I have a couple on there. They look like just like a white dot on a couple of my parts of my chest for the entrance and exit of the needle.
Huh.
Wow, that's pretty fucking hard.
Now that you're explaining it, I do think I would rather have the bifurcated tongue guy doing it, because I was picturing who else would be guiding it, and you don't want a guy to come out in a tie who's like, I'm head of accounting at Deloitte. On the weekends, I do this, and it's like you want.
What if his other job was like plastic surgeon?
It's funny because one of the guys who does this, who runs this, there's an organization called Edgewalkers, and they do a lot of this, and they do it all over the country. And one of the guys who leads the organization, his name is Elwood. He's a lawyer, and he has a forked tongue, and he has piercings all over him. So, and it is hilarious. You're like, what's his other job? He's a fucking lawyer.
Your Honor, they asked me to put the hooks in them.
Did he sound normal with the, I don't know the word, bifurcated tongue? Like, did
There you go.
Yeah.
did he pronounce all the words properly, or did he have a list?
Even better. He can pronounce words you wouldn't even.
Can you
begin
throw
to.
it back?
My hourly
Otherwise,
rates are
it's okay.
half.
He's a great guy. So,
But could you, just by listening, would you know that his tongue was abnormal?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit, maybe sometimes, but most of the time, no.
Christ
Why did he?
almighty.
What's the rationale for doing that? Cutting your tongue in half.
I would imagine, and this is just my mind, that you would be much better at oral sex if you had that going on. I'm sure that a lot of them just want to be unique, though. And
Yeah, he's a big body mod guy. They do, like, he's, American Primitive Movement, like, what's his last name? I just know his first name because he's a friend of a friend.
I'm not familiar with American Primitive.
Oh my God, I don't want to say his name wrong on a publication, so let me just.
It's cool.
No, he would just join the rest.
Yeah.
Uh,
It'd be a whole montage of me and you make a guest entry.
There it is. Akira Musafar. Right. I just wanted to make sure I was saying that right. So this is an American Primitive Movement. They kind of brought back a lot of this. This has been, I don't know, 30, 40 years, 40, 50 years of this. A lot of body mod stuff with this, a lot of extreme piercing, ritual related stuff for this. And this is kind of the descendants of that teaching is where I encountered it like that. I don't know. It's fairly interesting stuff. It doesn't do a lot for me. I find it a lot of work and a lot of effort for the altered state that you're looking for.
yeah,
And,
getting a sweat lodge if you're going to go
interesting.
hardcore. That's
Yeah,
that's
and-
smart. Have
I'm
you
not
done
a
that?
spiritual guy. I haven't done a sweat lodge. No, I'm not a spiritual guy. So like for me, it's like I understand if we're chasing a body experience. Sure, I like alcohol. I understand about chasing a body experience. I like sex. Sex is a body experience, right? Like this just doesn't surprise me that there's another way to do other extreme body experiences. And I know people who are thrilled on these, who like love their suspensions and love their hook suspensions, and it's just never
Does
really.
any part of you think like, this is a little bit like self-harm or self-destructive? Or do
Nah,
you think
'cause I
it's
think
more
it-
like what they're looking to get out of it?
I feel like this is why we segued from extreme sports. I mean, this is some of the research that I did in graduate school. My wife still does. This is looking at extreme ritual as another type of extreme experience that people seek out and go towards in a similar vein to things like extreme sports. So to me, the segue was very similar. It's a way of doing those extreme body experiences, but without the risk and without the harm, which is crazy because you think you get needles shoved in themselves. No, I don't generally think any of that is related to self-harm. Like you might find the people cut themselves and like that's a totally different thing. The people doing these at these events aren't generally there for those reasons. So,
Okay. I don't have an opinion either way. I don't know shit about these communities, but
I know it's not for me.
I can say like when I've seen
Tried it?
those specials on like Nat Geo
Do I need to?
and it shows a bunch of
Yep.
people in like a backyard.
Really,
Like,
Kyle?
you-
Kyle, you
I had this-
unsure if it's for you or not?
I had this conversation, right? We were sitting,
I could definitely see the appeal in it. I would want to do like the old Native American style thing where like you suspend yourself fully and go on like a spirit journey. Like you actually like sort of hallucinate, I suppose. But you have a whole like an out of body almost experience from the whole thing.
I feel
And
like
I'm,
there's this
I'm
great
sorry.
guy I know. Well, go ahead, Woody. Sorry, I've got
I was going to
funny
say,
stories about
like,
this when I
if
talk
there
more.
is, if there is some opportunity to do like a drug-based out-of-body experience, I'd be way more down for that than a piercing-based one.
But you're presumably you're enjoying the flying, right? You've been doing that type of stuff, and presumably there's some like body like physiological response. You're doing some sort of probably adrenaline stuff and probably some enjoyment of that. There's like you're chasing a body high of a type there, anyways, and maybe
Sure.
it clearly isn't as one-to-one as that. There's going to be other things you enjoy about that, but it seems weird that you're like this one totally not, but these other ones maybe.
Well,
You
what?
know?
I think like if I was like Woody, like my thought would be, all right, I can go up and do my paramotor and get that adrenaline rush and most likely return with 0 injuries, nothing to soothe or take care of. Whereas if I do this other thing, I have a guarantee that I'll have, some
That's probably my
puncture wounds.
favorite experience of that was actually post that. I was so I did it I think 4 years in a row, and did it once per
you
year.
kept going back.
Well, yeah, because I'm like, okay, so I want to do a couple things. Like,
Can't believe you've never brought this up.
one of the first times I did this, right? Like before that, we were sitting in a hot tub the night before. I hadn't done it before. and I was sitting there with my wife and one of her friends, and we were sitting out there. It was an apartment complex hot tub, right? And like these two guys came over and sat in the hot tub, and they're kind of, one of them was like a Canadian cop, and one of them was his son-in-law, and they were down there, right? And we were just chatting. They're kind of like, why are you in town? And we're talking about like this conference, and I'm like, one of the things I want to know is, does this cure a fucking hangover? So we were drinking heavily in the fucking hot tub, and I'm like, I'm gonna let you guys know tomorrow. We'll look you up when we get back from this. I'll let you know if this cures a hangover. But I gotta say, to no joking aside, like one of you're like the after effects of that, it comes out pretty easy. They heal fairly fast, little tiny scars, and the actual couple hours after that were actually the most peaceful and euphoric element of that for me, for that experience physically. Like I found the actual,
because you knew nobody was coming to hook you again till next
no,
year.
Yeah, I know.
It was like a real like chill, like relaxed body.
So you
feel.
felt
I have
like
a
kind of
hobby of banging my head against a brick wall, and when I stop, I really like that.
I didn't. It was not the absence of pain. So.
But
My
it was just
favorite
kind of
part
like
about
a
my hobby is
content-
when I stop doing it.
Do you think you would have had the spiritual aspect of it if you were a spiritual person going into it, kind of looking for that? Do you think kind of not believing in that disqualifies you?
One of the complaints that we occasionally got from the community when I was back in graduate school doing research with this was that by explaining some of the physical things that were happening in the body from like BDSM or other extreme ritual stuff, that it would detract from that experience for people or take away the magic, or, you know, by trying to explain the woo or the spirituality of it, you're detracting from it. And that just never resonated with me as an explanation. Perhaps it's because I'm a fairly logical, rational guy. Perhaps it's because I have all the training for logic and science and education like this. But for me, it's like, because I understand it doesn't make it worse. It doesn't remove that ability to happen. In fact, generally for me, I would assume it would facilitate that. If I understand why it's happening as it is and what's causing that and what sets it up and how to make that happen easier, then presumably I can get around a lot of the shitty elements of that by doing it better. So
like you need to add like peyote and dehydration to this and really
Right.
go on a fucking trip.
Right? Like, and you're like,
awful.
you went back a couple of years. Yeah. I'm like, the first couple of times I did it, I'm like, this can't be what's all the fucking hype about this? This kind of sucks. So let's keep doing it till I figure out what the fuck is, why these people are enjoying it. Because
I bet it did cure your hangover, because nothing would cure a hangover for me faster than a guy approaching with a sharp steel hook going, all right, we're going to get you. The second that comes out, I'm no longer hungover. I'm on edge. I'm like a fucking Navy SEAL, you know, laying in the Vietnam jungle. Like I know, I'm noticing, you know, people's blinks.
because when you get the piercings done, right, like they warm the flesh up a little bit. There's a lot of pinching and fucking hurts a little bit style stuff. And the first one goes in, it sucks ass, because it's like, you know, you can feel the hook. They're almost like hollowed hooks, hollowed out. It's a steel rod. It looks like it's hollowed. It's like an angled thing. You can feel that going through your fucking skin.
Of
And you
course.
can feel that digging through, and you're like, that sensation is damage to my body, and I don't like that fucking
And I
sensation.
paid this.
But the worst part is right before the second one, because they do it in pairs, right? Like if you're doing, I mean, I suppose you don't have to always do them in pairs, but if you're doing suspensions or pulling off, they tend to do them in pairs. And it's like, you felt the first one sucked. You're like, yeah, that really fucking blows. And then the guy's like, I remember the first one where I had it done, right? He's like, all right, breathe with me. And I'm like, fuck no, I don't want to breathe with you. Just get it through there right the fuck now, because that first one sucked ass, and I don't want to sit here anticipating it, because the anticipation was at least twice as bad as the fucking sensation. The sensation sucked, but the anticipation was way worse. So I don't know.
Fuck.
That sounds like something that I'm going to leave to you. That just sounds really not fun. Did you watch the more extreme people do it? Like, was this just everybody was doing what you did, or did you see like the real deal hanging from 6 hooks,
Swinging around like a squirrel.
I've done data collection at a couple of these now, with the extreme suspension stuff. Yeah, and some of them play on there. Like,
A lot
I
of
remember
blood
this one-
again.
No, actually not a lot of blood. But I remember this one girl who went up on these, right? She got pierced and she went up there and she was playing on it. She was like swinging from it and giggling and laughing and like acting like, I mean, like for her, that was clearly, she either was much more experienced with that. It was very likely the way she's doing it. She's very experienced with that. And clearly she was better about getting in the headspace to take those body sensations and go somewhere with them. For me, it takes me fucking forever. Well, yeah.
No way that she's feeling what you're feeling as you know, like, I don't know, 180-pound man versus 110-pound.
I haven't done suspension. I think that would, I don't like the loss of control, and I don't really like that pain stuff really hasn't done a lot for me physiologically. Like I told you, the most relaxed I got from that was post those out, like mildly euphoric, just felt super chill, super relaxed for a couple hours after. And I felt like, I can have half a six pack and do that for $4 and a half hour, like it's a different, but that's clearly not the experience that a lot of these people are getting out of it, or other people.
Guys, do you guys know about Natty Light? Well, come with me.
But it's a skill set, right?
Leave
like
the
it's a skill
hook
set
man
like anything else. Like,
it's
a
cheaper
body
too.
Skill set. So yeah, that's cool.
Have you ever seen that? I was trying to find it here, like that old internet picture of that dude like laying backwards and he's like hanging by his nutsack, and his nutsack is like a foot long. It's so stretched, and like his balls look like they're just Concord grapes. They're so purple. Do you know the image I'm talking about? Chiz, pull up. Hey, Jamie, get that image of nutsack suspension.
That's
Chiz, keep searching until you find it.
Out.
Concord grapes, CONCORD grapes.
If it takes the next 3 hours, Chiz, I need you to...
When you search testicle suspension, you really get some good results.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd want to do that.
Well, but I mean, that would really put you over the
Oh,
screen.
that's not suspension. That's just ruination.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He can't sit anymore.
Oh, if you put in testicle suspension, these are just underwear that help your balls stay in where they're supposed to be.
That is some of the search results do bring that. Yes.
It's probably for like the elderly.
I don't like this Google search. I'm stopping. I'm tapping out already. Yeah, that's very hardcore. That's very extreme. I'm surprised we haven't spoken about that before, because that is one of the like rock climbing's interesting, but
is what you did the entry level point for that, or was there like?
Yeah. Well, no, you could go. There's easier. You can do. A lot of people do them. They'll weave. They'll do a small piercing on like the arm or chest, where it's basically fishing line, and there's like a bell on it, or like a lime is. The traditional like Indian one is like lime stuff, right? Like fruit of some sort. I don't know quite why that is.
Oh, wouldn't lime burn?
I don't know. Maybe that's part of the thing. I don't know. But there's a lot of. It
absolutely would burn. I've cut myself with a lime knife. It burns like crazy.
It's not fun.
It's acidic.
Yeah. So I think there are.
Does it clean the wound, or does it just hurt?
Yeah.
Because I never understood that. I'm like, is this like helping right now? Is it better that I cut myself with a lime knife? Because I've done that too, making drinks.
I mean, but this shit happens.
Lime is not a disinfectant, Chiz says. Chiz, I don't believe you.
Yeah, like some of this is ritual, right? Like, and the ritual is like, for me, has no appeal whatsoever. I don't give a fuck about the ritual. I don't care what religious practice has come up for it and what the relevance of that is. That's not relevant to me. But the physical elements of it were interesting to me, and I wanted to try it. I wanted to experience it. Like,